and you're in these ice caves that no one has ever stood in. And that's plus 40 degrees from minus 40 plus outside. You step in and you're having to film. And then the mountain guide is saying, okay, we were supposed to have hours. And he went, you've got 20 minutes. It's like, what? He said, the wind's building. The clouds are coming. If we're stuck here, we cannot be stuck on top of this volcano.
Welcome to Maré Sonora podcast. In English, you can translate it as Resonant Tide. This is a weekly show about sailing, conservation, science and photography. I'm your host, Marina, a Brazilian journalist based in Italy. So the episodes here are often recorded in Portuguese. However, I also like to make some in English, like the one that is about to begin. And hopefully, I'll be able to do some in Italian, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this one, which was recorded remotely. Thank you so much for listening. I'm very pleased to chat with somebody extremely talented who have worked in incredible places surrounded by unique wildlife, people and culture. He shot for BBC, National Geographic, and his credits include high-profile documentaries such as One Strange Rock, Human Planet, Planet Earth 2, Wild Arabia, just to mention some of them. Toby Strong is a multi-Emmy and BAFTA award-winning cinematographer. So welcome to Maré Sonora podcast, and thank you so much for accepting my humble invitation, Toby.
It wasn't humble at all. I am truly honored. And after you invited me, I looked through who you've talked to before, and I got very, very nervous. You've talked to some pretty amazing people, so I feel very blessed and honored that you asked me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also have, must thanks a dear listener of the podcast. Her name is Natalia Cerqueira. She was actually the kind soul who sent me a message and suggested that I spoke with you today. So thanks heaps, Natalia. It was her suggestion, really. It was really nice. So Toby, where are you at the moment? Where are you speaking from at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm home. And home is obviously quite a potent word, isn't it? Where does home feel? I've just come back from 2 months. I've spent a month in Namibia in the desert, walking with baboons, habituated baboons, following their lives as they move through one of the driest places on earth. And from there, I went straight over the border into Zambia, and I spent the last month following lions. It's their dry season, and they wait by the riverbanks for animals to come down so they can ambush. It was very strange going from somewhere where I was walking every day in the desert to somewhere where I had to sit in a car for 16 hours a day and watch lions. And lions, I hate to say this, how people will hate me, are the most boring animals on the planet. They do nothing for 23 hours a day. All they do is sleep. Give me a insect to watch or a bird, but lions, but you have to wait ready because they will do nothing, and then an antelope or a buffalo or something will come past and bang, they smash it. So it's really hard. You're like from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m, you're sat in a chair in the car and you have to be ready. And you're just watching these animals sleeping. So I've been away for 2 months and I've just got home. And home is southwest England. It's a county called Devon. And I'm really blessed at the moment where I'm living. There's a huge, tens of thousands of acres area called Dartmoor, which is wild moorland. And I'm on the edge of it and I look out the window and I can see all the rolling hills of England going down to the sea I can see on the horizon. So it's nice for me. Every morning I get to see the sea. I watch it and to see what the wind is doing and what the ocean's doing. So this is where I am.
Yeah, and those of you, for the listeners, I will put on the show's note, I will put your Instagram link so people can actually enjoy your amazing shots you share sometimes of sunrises and sunsets. It's a really stunning material you share.
Thank you.
I remember the first time I sent you a message, you said, I'm in the middle of Zambia with lions. I don't think I'll be able to chat now.
Yeah, the internet connection was about 0. And I was really excited. I thought, maybe I could go somewhere and we could talk and I could do it here in the bush. It would be really exciting. And it's like, Just patience. Wait until you're home and you can actually talk to Marina. That'll be better.
And before I start asking you about your career, your experiences as a cinematographer and photographer, I would like to hear you about sailing, because I saw your profile photo on WhatsApp is a sailboat. It's actually the second time that happens. I spoke with a friend recently, and he also had a profile on a sailboat. And I was like, are you a sailor as well? So I'd like to listen a bit about that in your life.
So sailing. I have always adored the sea. And I mentioned the word home, and often I have felt the most at home when I'm on water or underwater. And to be on a boat makes me so happy. And I've been really blessed. I've been on boats for a period in Indonesia when we're filming with whale sharks, or last winter I was up in the Arctic with orcas and humpbacks underneath the northern lights, and all around the world I've been on, and Galapagos. And I just feel at peace when I'm on a boat. And so for me, the journey to getting a boat has been a long journey. I had a little boat a number of years ago when my son was only about 1 or 2, called a Drascombe Dabber, which she was about 16 foot and open. She had tan sails. She was really lovely. And you could row her. She was really small. So she was great fun. She was my first boat. And I had to let her go. And then this year, it was only about 8 months ago, I thought, you know what? My son's 15, 16. When he becomes 18 and leaves home, that's when I'm going. I'm getting on a boat and I'm going for a year or so. Before you can do that, you actually need to learn to sail, and you actually need to know whether being on a boat for longer periods is what you want. So, and also to have that adventure with my son, Finn. So I researched and researched and researched, which, as you know, is the most fun. And then I found Lizzie G, who I bought. And Lizzie G's previous owner is a bit of a godlike sailor, and he had sailed her 4 or 5 times around the Atlantic solo, and she's been to the Azores. She's had huge expeditions and faced seas that I pray I may never face. And so he kitted her out. She's 27 foot. She's a Albin Vega, which is a Scandinavian type of boat. And so when I went to look at her, she's old. She's kind of my age, which is very old. But she's been really well looked after, and she's really solid. She's got all the electronics, and I bought her, and then I sailed it down. I got a friend who's a skipper, and he came down with us, myself and my son, for 3 days down the south coast of England. And we learned, and we put everything through its paces, and it was great. And now she's moored. I can almost see where she is. We have these beautiful rivers in the south of England that come up, and it's forested and it's tidal. So she's moored there, and it's a lovely 25-minute, half-hour journey down to the sea. So and I've loved it this summer, been out sailing loads, learning, experimenting, just figuring everything out and buying little bits for her, which is obviously just the most fun. And so this is what I'm going to do over the next 2-3 years, is learn and explore. And I can do journeys over to France, to the Scilly Isles, and maybe next summer I want to head down to Portugal, and just learn, and just to feel this is what I want. And then in 2-3 years, I can get a bigger boat, and off I go.
That's super cool. Let me know, keep me posted, so I'll meet you in person somewhere on these European coasts.
Definitely.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. And diverting the topic a little bit about your career itself, you've worked in incredible places, like I mentioned in the beginning, surrounded by amazing wildlife and culture and people. And you started as a leader expedition, and then you turned into a cinematographer and photographer, Toby. Is that right? And how exactly did that happen?
I grew up further down the coast here in an area called Dorset. And my earliest thoughts were of Africa and of expeditions. And those are the books I vanished into, reading and learning about those people. And I never felt I really fitted in as a child. And I wanted to escape. And I escaped into books first. And then when I could, I physically escaped and ran away to Africa, bought a one-way ticket and went. And I did little bits with the military, learning skills. And then I took people on expeditions. I thought, this is what I could see beauty everywhere, and I could see the fragility and wonder of our world. And I wanted to show people that. And I thought that way was to physically take them and go, look at this from this mountaintop, isn't it amazing? Look at this jungle clearing, isn't it amazing? But then I realized that through photography and film, you can reach a lot more people. And that was the transitional period. That was I spent very early on, I spent a year in the Amazon, in your home country, and up in near Manaus. And I was there to build enclosures for the animals that we would film. So for the piranha, about a huge in the jungle for a habituated jaguar, and all these things. That I'd done engineering and I could do that. And I bought a clockwork camera at that point and started assisting and watching the camera and why is he doing that? How's he doing that? And then just trying to learn. And that was my sort of, and then I came back to England and I thought, okay, I'm going to be a cameraman. And then I had no way of getting experience or work. So we have a big festival called Wild Screen, and it's the biggest wild natural history festival. I couldn't afford to go. So I faked a little name badge that said Toby Strong. And I went, and we went to this big party hosted by National Geographic. And I was standing there. There was a huge stuffed bear for some reason. I was standing next to this bear like this with a drink. And this man walks up to me and he goes, "Ah, Toby, yes, you are the one who wants to come and film in the south of France for a year." I mean, yes. And he had arranged to meet somebody called Toby at 8 o'clock next to the stuffed bear. I have no idea who the other Toby was, but I was there at that point and my name was Toby. So I got to go to the south of France for a year and I learned lots of things, and then I came back and I've been pretending ever since.
Yeah, I did hear that episode on your podcast when you say that. I was just curious. I don't know if it was a language barrier, but when you say about something about cornflakes, when you faked your ID and you mentioned like cornflake stuff or something, I don't know if I was dreaming or I don't know. Yeah, at some stage you said.
Sounds like a terrible English breakfast, and I would never eat it.
Yeah, it was some sort of expression that you used to say that you faked your ID and then you managed to get in the festival. And I was like, what did he mean by cornflakes? But I think I don't know.
I apologize for my bad language. I don't know.
No, I apologize for my inability to.
No, it's, yeah, my English is the problem.
No, it's all good. And on your website bio, there is a quote, Toby, and that says, "Let the beauty you love be what you do." How does that thought guide you on your life, on your career? How does that move you forward?
I don't feel really as though I have a job. I don't really feel as though I go to work. I did 16 hours in Namibia every day, and Zambia. Magical, wonderful. It's not a job, it's not work, it's passion, it's my life, it's what I love. And if you can do that, if you can do what you love, you never work. You never have to work. I'm paraphrasing cleverer people than me, but I think it's so true. I tell my son this: find what you love. Go and explore. Experience many things. There will be some things you love. Do that. You can't be good at something unless you're passionate about it, because you won't put in the extra time and the extra hours and the extra love. And if you're good at something, there will be someone who'll pay you for that. And I just think you must do that. If you can, follow what you love. And there will be a way to make a living from it. And I've tried to do that. And yes, there's not an awful lot of money in the bank, but I have led an extraordinary life.
Yeah, there's a lot amazing places I imagine you have been to. Could you recall any of them? I know it's a huge generalization question, but if you could share one of that was super special for you and why that was
That's the hardest
unforgettable
question.
for you.
That's the hardest question.
Okay, I can say more than one then.
It's so hard. Okay, one that just came to mind. It's about to come out. We did a series, One Strange Rock, with Will Smith, a global series. And we've just shot the second one, which is out now, I think, just come out. But one of the places we went is in Bolivia, and it's these salt flats. They're the biggest salt flats in the world. I believe that's probably wrong. But when you go, and if you get the right depth of water, it's a mirror. And what above is below. And you can drive through. There is no... It's the most extraordinary optical illusion you're living in. The clouds are beneath you and above you. When I'm flying my drone, it was really hard just not to fly down through the water into the reflection. We were there to shoot at night, and we've all seen amazing stars. I've never been somewhere where I'm just crying and sobbing. You stand at night and you have the Milky Way complete over your head and all the world's stars, and they're below you as well. You are stood in the middle of the universe, and the emotions that releases. I just stood there crying. The most extraordinary spectacle I have ever witnessed on Earth was that. Just amazing. And then, okay, as part of the same series, we went down to Antarctica. And I've been down there a couple of times and staying out at the explorer Scott's hut. I was there for a month, that's another story. This time we were staying at the American base called McMurdo, which is quite strange. It's quite Blade Runner and weird, giant, like Avatar, huge machines come past, and these Americans with big dungarees and spanners and beards. It's very peculiar. And for me, I adore the wilderness. And I got to go, there's a volcano there called Mount Erebus. And Antarctica is obviously the coldest place on Earth. And yet you have this volcano. So there you have these points, these millimeters, where the volcanic air comes up and the cold is there. And there's a point in the middle, these millimeters, where it sustains life. The temperature is just right, and you get this bacteria and algae there. Life is amazing. So these volcanoes, effectively, because of pressure, it's at about 5,500 meters. So you go from this helicopter, which is warm and cozy, 20 minutes, you're dropped at minus 45 to 50 degrees. The wind is howling. You're at high altitude, and you're standing on top of this frozen volcano looking over the frozen Antarctic Sea. You then abseil down to these fumaroles where the heat from the volcanoes have made these amazing caves underneath the top, and they're changing constantly. So no one else had ever stood where we went. And these mountain guides took us, and we abseiled down into, the helicopter has to keep going on the top because it's too dangerous to stop. He stopped. I'll tell you about that. So we abseiled down, and then you're in these caves with the light coming through this ice, this pale blues. It's so sensual, these curves, these ice. And you're in these ice caves that no one has ever stood in. And that's plus 40 degrees from minus 40 plus outside. You step in and you're having to film. And then the mountain guide is saying, okay, we were supposed to have hours. And he went, you've got 20 minutes. It's like, what? He said, the wind's building. The clouds are coming. If we're stuck here, we cannot be stuck on top of this volcano. And it's like, you got 5 minutes. And we just waited a year to get here to film this thing, and suddenly it's gone from hours and hours to 5 minutes, and we're desperately trying to film a sequence. And then he was like, we need to go now. Grabbed our things from 45 degrees, putting clothes on, everything, gloves, because if you're out for a few seconds, frostbite, you can lose fingers and things. Run to the helicopter. This huge bank of cloud is starting to come up. Jump in, and he starts the engine. It goes goo, 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 goo. Goo. He's like, this isn't good. And he picks the radio up and he's like, McMurdo, this is an emergency. We are stuck. Send helicopters now. We're stuck on top of this thing, and there's a broken helicopter blown off the mountain to our right that the wind is so strong it just blown off, and we're there, and this cloud's coming up, this huge bank of cloud. It's like, okay. And he's like, okay, get out. You need to lie in the snow with the emergency bags and wait. And we all got out, and there's clouds coming, and then in front of it, these two helicopters just come up, and they just come in like this, doors open.
Wow.
We have to throw ourselves in, and we're just peeling off like that in front of this cloud that came over. It was interesting. And what often happens is you are in the middle of a desert in a sandstorm, or you are at minus 48 degrees, you have frostbite, you haven't slept for days, you're incredibly tired. But when you film, it has to be exceptional, because the people who are sitting at home watching, they're fine, they're just sat there. If the lens is dirty or it's wobbly or not very good, it won't work. So they don't care. That's not fair. But no matter how you feel, you have to be able to produce excellence in that situation. So it's often being alive is the hard bit, and then you have to make the film on top of that. So it's I love it. It's fascinating and magical.
That's amazing, and you can actually imagine when you were talking, when you were reviving this stuff. You can imagine it's really absolutely fantastic. And Toby, your last name Strong is Toby Strong. Did you make like an artistic name, or is Toby Strong is the family normal name?
No, if you had seen me at school, I was very small and skinny, and I was bullied a lot, so I was quite the opposite of strong. So in that case, it was quite ironic. In some ways, physically I am, but in ways I'm not. It's an interesting name to have to carry around with you.
Yeah, I have this problem of being too curious, so I end up making silly questions sometimes, but I have to make them.
No, it's a good question. It's a valid one.
It's a valid. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that would not be my stage name. I would probably come up with something else. I do have. When I got. Although I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, but I was brought up in Catholic religion. So when you get confirmed, you take the name of a saint. And I found that quite strange, even back when I was a young child. So I chose St. Francis, who worked with animals. So that is a name that I have taken that has worked through my life.
Okay, nice. And about your podcast that is called Through a Wild Lens, how did you come up with the idea to start that? Tell me a little bit about the initiative and the motivation you had to do that.
Well, similar question back to you as well is why do you do it? During COVID, I couldn't work. And so I did have some time. I'm starting to try and write a book that is my stories, a collection of stories and photos, images, tips and bits and pieces. And I realized that a lot of my stories, just recalling them was difficult. So I wanted to get them down. And I thought a way to get them down initially is to talk, is to verbalize them. And I also wanted to verbalize them for my son. So Finn has them. there as a record. So they are quite disparate and different, and of different lengths and subjects and many things. I wish I could be like you and for it to be professional and magical and focused as yours is, but it's not. And I will go months without doing one. I struggle with ego, and why would people want to listen? Me telling it, is it as though I'm saying, oh, listen to me? And it's not that. And I've had to look at that myself. I just want to, I know how lucky and blessed I am to have had the experiences I have. And I just want to put them there. And if people want to listen, then that's great. And I really like doing them when I do. And I think I need to be a little more focused with them. So any help from you and guidance would be very much appreciated.
I am a beginner in that field, Toby, because my passion really is in journalism, is photography as well. And yeah. When I can do both, when I can write and photograph at the same time, makes me complete. So this audio branch of communication field is fairly new for me as well. And it did started last year when we were in lockdown in Tasmania. And I had only good Wi-Fi connection, and I heard a podcast from another friend, and I said, okay, let's try doing something so I can get to talk to interesting people, listen to their inspiring stories, and at the same time share that with others that, like myself, might be happy to listen to them. Yeah. So yeah, I can help you anytime, but it's just very initial for me, and I
don't know if you found as well, but obviously you're a visual person, and my whole world is my eyes. I record images. So going through the exercise and process of verbalizing that, talking, and having to describe what I see and feel rather than visually capture it has been really beautiful for me to dip into that other sense. The audial sense has been a really wonderful journey. I don't know if you found that.
Yeah, I think in that way, it's a bit different for me because I try to make raw chats. I'm not doing like artistically like you do on yours, like you do a super nice voice. It's so cool because you can trip with your description. You can just follow. It's really cool. And I do a very basic chatting. But what I do like doing is research before. I enjoy a lot. It's like an investigation kind of thing. So you read about the guest and you go through it. Sometimes frustrating because you don't have the chance to share everything you learned. It works the same way when you write an article and you investigate so much and you end up writing an article that it's like 30% of what you learned. And it frustrates me a little bit when I talk to interesting people like you and I have no, I cannot cover all the topics because it would end up in a 5-hour podcast. Yeah. So I have to either divide into chats like smaller episodes or just another time talk to you again and then go back into that topic and say, okay, today we focus on that. Yeah. But I admire yours because it's shorter and it's very artistic. It has like a touch of art on yours when you make the good sounds and the awesome sound quality, like the whales, and when you make the sailing sounds and stuff, and walking when you speak really low. And it's also super funny when you say that when you describe on your show notes, when you say, for example, that I put in here, what's the line that you say? Where it's to put a child at ease or something. I forgot. I'm trying to find where you wrote that. Oh yeah, I like I like that you may feel the unforgiving minute or soothe a truculent child at bedtime. It was really cool too. I was like,
yeah, thank you. With regards to the one you were talking about, the whales, so a lot of them are just done with my phone, recording the audio, which isn't great. But then sometimes I have been lucky enough to do some pieces for, in England, we have a number of radio stations. Radio 4 is a lot of news, documentary, and I have a dear friend, Sophie, who's a producer, and so she's got me to do some pieces for the national radio, and then her extraordinary skills with editing and with producing those pieces. So you can tell the ones that have been done by her, because sort of me just chatting on a phone, or they're hers, which are the most exquisite, beautiful soundscapes. That's all her work.
That was really cool. All of them are very cool in general. They're very, they easily put somebody at ease. That's for sure. Yeah, how was the experience to observe the Northern Lights? You mentioned on that one, when you go up north of Norway. It's one of my dreams to see that.
Again, similar to Salar de Uyuni, the salt flats, it as natural phenomenon, you can't really touch it. So I've spent quite a lot of time up north and down south. I love deserts, whether they are hot or cold. I find that everything is stripped away, and your mind fills that space and starts to unravel. And so when I remember the first time I properly saw Northern Lights, we were filming for Blue Planet 2, and we got up to Tromsø, and from Tromsø we landed. It was dark for, we had about 1 hour of daylight during the day, and you come out of Tromsø, we had to get a little ferry to the island we were staying on, and got on and went out on deck. And the whole sky was alive. Reds and greens and pinks and purples. It's like a vast sentient octopus squid in light, just moving. And you feel as though you can hear it. And there is science now to say you can hear it. And it just dances around you. And again, just tears. Just nature doing this. And I remember getting to this island and staying in these little fishermen's huts, and I couldn't sleep, just up all night, just watching, freezing, just full of joy. And then I finally must have fallen asleep, and someone just came and woke me as the sun just came up. So you have to come outside. I just came outside the hut, and there was a pod of orca whales hunting 20 meters off. It's like, oh, stop it, it's too much, it's so beautiful. I love it. And what is amazing is that part, the Arctic, northern Scandinavia, is so otherworldly. You would expect to have to travel for weeks to get to this place that is so majestic and magical. And it's just that one little flight, you can drive there, and you are in this world of deep, dark fjords, and magical forests, and northern lights, and orcas and humpbacks and massive herring. It is one of my favorite places on earth, and the crisp coldness of it. You're on the bow of these ice boats, and you see the flume come up from a whale with northern lights around. It is one of the most magical experiences, and it's close to us, it's not far. Next
year, hopefully, there is a friend, a sailor friend. He's gonna sail from somewhere on the coast of Norway to Lofoten. Lofoten? I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, it will be like 600 miles, more or less. and I'm super looking forward to that. And
that would be amazing. The Lofoten Islands are beautiful, and it's an amazing place for the whales. With global warming, the whales are moving further up. They have to have the cold water because they follow the herring, and the herring need the cold. But the Lofoten has traditionally been an amazing place to see the whale. And when we were up there were a few families and couples on boats, yachts, who were up there to see the whales. And I was going, I'll do that. I need to do that. Just to be able to, can you imagine that, going up on your sailboat? You have to have your stove. But to be able, and we were there on this big boat, but they were just following and just being able to be next to the whales. How cool would that be?
Yeah, we're going probably June, July. So I don't know. It's not really winter time now. I don't, but still, it would be nice.
So Lofoten has these amazing mountains that just rise up out of the sea. You'll love it. Yeah. It'll be incredible.
Yeah, I'm super excited if that happens. And Toby, another thing I would like to ask you is your experience working with Sir David Attenborough, because I imagine it was something away from being ordinary and normal. I mean, I would like to see what you learned by this experience. How was it for you to interact with him?
I've been blessed to work with David a number of times over the years in different places. This last year on this big series called Earthshot, which is a really important project on trying to solve the world's problems. And I got to spend a lot of the time with Sir David and with Prince William. And both of them are deeply impressive people, actually. David I've spent a lot more time with, and I got to spend the most time was in Kenya a couple of years ago. We were filming the end of a series, and the last 2 northern white rhinos that exist are out in this reserve called Lewa. And we were doing a piece with these last 2 rhinos, this mother and daughter, Fatou and Najin. And they have a tree on top of the hill there with gravestones of rhino. And there's one that says, "Here lies Sudan, the last male northern white rhino." And it's the most potent physical piece of evidence for what we're doing to the planet and the destructiveness and the loss of species, flora and fauna. And I stood there with David, and the end of that species, and also standing with David, he's now 93, 94. You know, and he is the most extraordinary man. There is no one else on earth who I would ask, who I can think of, who I would rather spend, who I'd be privileged to spend time with. What he has seen and experienced, and what he has brought, passion and education to a global audience. And this last year, yeah, he's slowing down, he's old. But, you know, he stood up at COP and gave that extraordinary impassioned speech. This last year as well, my son Finn was able to come when I was filming with him in England. And I got to watch my son spend the day with Sir David. And that's probably the most special thing, is to be able to see that and to witness that. Everything you hear about David is true. He's a gentleman. He is kind, considerate, strong, impassioned, charismatic. He is quite the most amazing person.
And Toby, speaking a bit about your experience in Brazil, you mentioned you've been in Brazil before, and then you actually made one episode about the dog, the wingnut. It was really funny, that one. And you were there for how long? How was your experience up north in Brazil?
Oh, it's strange. You know, your country is so vast. So my limited experience is obviously a tiny little bit. I've filmed in Brazil a few times. So that first time, yeah, I was young, and we had a little house on the river up in Manaus. And, you know, Manaus is thousands of miles from the coast, from anywhere. You are totally isolated. And I found the city of Manaus challenging. There is extraordinary wealth from drugs generally and extreme poverty. And I found those things together quite hard. There is amazing colonial architecture there, and I loved down by the port and the harbor and the life. So it was quite strange. So yeah, a lot of the time was spent going into the forest and filming and different research stations. I remember going to one, it's really remote, and they had this tower you would climb and you'd emerge up through the canopy, just forest all the way around, and going on the boats out through the flooded forest when it flooded, and seeing the Branco and the Negro rivers and how they, for hundreds and hundreds of miles, they would be one clear and one cloudy from the sediment, and that would carry on. And the Boto dolphins would hide in the cloudy half of the river, and they would send out sonar until the fish were in the other half, and they would come out and grab the fish before they would use it as camouflage. So it was very strange. I loved the community I came into contact with there. It was a very interesting time, a very intense time. I went back a few years ago. We did a series called Great Rivers, and I filmed on the Amazon one. And we went to film a couple of things. One was this festival halfway up the Amazon in one of the towns, and they had this carnival each year, and it was the red and the grey dolphins, and they were completely isolated. There were no roads in. It was only by boat, and yet they would create this huge party festival each year, and the floats and the things they created were amazing. And to be there as part of that community, and the indigenous peoples would come in as well, and to be able to share that space and that time with those people felt very, very special. I feel, for me to comment on Brazil is, I can't, because my experience was so small and so focused in such a small area. But filming in jungles is horrible. I hate it. You can't ever see anything. Everything's trying to kill you. All your equipment always breaks. They are the worst places on the planet to try and film. Give me a desert any day. Give me the top of a mountain, underwater, anywhere, never jungles. And I always end up back in jungles. Every time I leave, it's like, I'm never coming back here. I will never come back here. Do you want to go to the jungle? Yeah, all right. And I always forget. They are the worst places in the world to film. Everything wants to kill you, bite you, sting you, whatever, get inside you. Horrible. Yeah.
I lived in Manaus for 10 years, Toby. And I'm from São Paulo. Yeah, yeah.
And what do you think about Manaus?
Yeah, I completely share your opinion on this bizarre economic inequality. I don't know if you use the word inequality, like uneven social, because you have this massive millionaire here and extreme pool. It's really sad. I was a bit shocked when I first arrived there of how deforested the city is, like how, because they have that culture of building a house and chopping off all the trees to prepare the land. Now I think it's getting better. There is this growing mentality of conservation in the region, and a lot of NGOs working there to try to make a difference into appreciating keeping the forest up instead of chopping that down. I think it's a, but I was slightly shocked when I got there and I saw these massive avenues with no trees whatsoever, and then you have to cross the river to see the first tree. It's pretty dry, the city, and but yeah, I kept there. I ended up being there for nearly 10 years. I graduated in journalism in São Paulo, and then I went there. My first job was there in the newspaper, and I was there for in between living and coming back for 10 years. Yeah, it was really.
Gosh.
People are extremely. Sorry.
People are extremely what?
Friendly and welcoming, completely different than what I was used to. Like, you were in the bus stop and they started talking to you and asking who your family is, who your mother is, if you want to come over to have a tea, and you would never do that in São Paulo or in Campinas, where I grew up.
Yeah, that's because Brazilians, Brazilians are very unfriendly.
Brazilians are what?
Very unfriendly people.
Yeah, the more you go to São Paulo, the coldest people are. Like, but in Manaus and further inland is super different. Their interaction, they're more human. I think it's very special. The people are very special there, I think. But the heat is an issue.
Horrible. Did you feel isolated there? I remember, even though you can have huge skies, you can move wherever you want, just a feeling that you're isolated in the middle of this jungle for thousands of miles. I definitely felt almost claustrophobic being there.
Yeah, I felt, because I'm not from there, so for me it was hard to travel back to São Paulo, and super expensive. Like, it's more expensive than travel to Miami, for example, to fly from Manaus to São Paulo, to Florianópolis, where it's ridiculous expensive. It's less flights, so inside Brazil it's pretty expensive to travel. And I felt like that. I felt as if I was living on an island, that I had only to live by plane, no other option, because you don't have roads connecting. I meI mean, you do have, but it might take a fairly bit of adventure to reach. And I did have that feeling. Sometimes I couldn't just grab my car and see my family or friends from São Paulo for Campinas. I was there, and it was a weird feeling. It was definitely a weird feeling for me for a while. But there were environmental compensations that you could travel, like the logistics, you travel in the region, these small planes and landing on the water. It was a bit, I like that kind of thing. And I think that's why I was there for so long. Because
the thing I used to love, I only did it a couple of times, but going on the 2-3 tiered boats and just going off into up the rivers and around, that was amazing. And just visiting floating bars and floating farms, or just people, again, being so friendly, saying, come visit, come. That was really special to be able to do that.
Yeah, you sleep on hammock.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm not gonna keep you for much longer. I just have 2 more questions for you today, anyway. So how do you pick a topic or a destination when you go for work travel? How do you select the spot or the location? How does it work for you?
So generally, I'm asked to film a series or a program or a sequence. I'm now lucky enough to be in a position where I can choose what I do. So I will have, there's always a number of options. And for me now, I want to do things that help, that make a difference, whether that's directly working on things that highlight a problem, whether it's through education, whether it's through impassioning people. So I want to work on things that will make a difference. And then it's often the people I work with is more important than where I go. I have had greater experiences filming 5 miles down the road here in the rain, in the winter, with amazing people than I have in extraordinary places on Earth with extraordinary animals, but the people I'm with, I've not got on with. So for me, the people I work with, I would choose to do something with someone I really like somewhere bad than someone I don't like somewhere good. So the people are really important. And working with people or animals that I love. I'm hopefully next year spending the year with elephants, which elephants are my closest friends often. So yeah, I love elephants. So spending a year with elephants sounds pretty good to me. So yeah, that's how I tend to choose.
And in order to prepare, to prepare yourself, because I've seen some photos of you super, super close to cheetahs, for example, and some animals that are not necessarily super friendly. And how do you prepare yourself for that? And what do you think are the skills somebody has to have in order to do what you do? How do you deal with that? I think I made, I don't know how many questions in one, but I hope it was clear.
The way I'd like to answer that is something I find fascinating and something we all use every day, which is our animal senses. So you will know if someone makes you uncomfortable. You will know if someone makes you comfortable. You can meet a stranger or a friend, and the distance that you stay from them or come close to them, you can judge where the exact point where it becomes too close or it feels too distant. We do that subconsciously. So it's being aware of that and inhabiting our animal brain more and using the skills we have more and more consciously. So working with lion or elephant, cheetah. I filmed up in the north, in the top of the Arctic. When I was filming Arctic foxes. There was this Arctic fox at 30, 40 meters away, had my long lens. It's like, okay, fine. I'm now going to keep talking to you and I'm going to come around so you can see me straight. And I'm just going to keep talking. You let me know when I'm too close and I'll stop. So I did that. And we chatted to this fox. I chatted to this fox until I was sat next to it. Just listening. We can all do it. And I love it. I love tapping into the energy of that animal and moving closer and where it feels comfortable and then stopping and working with that is something I adore. And also I work a lot with people as well. So if I'm filming at Burning Man, or I'm filming at the biggest Hindu festival on earth, or in a Tibetan temple, it requires you to have a physical sense of movement. You're at Burning Man and you're standing still, you're going to stand out. If you're dancing and moving with people, you become invisible. Similarly, in a Tibetan monastery, you start dancing, you're going to stand out. If you're still, you become invisible. And it's not about standing in a corner with your camera, because you just stand out. You can be with people and you can become invisible by matching your energy to theirs. And I find that whole process and way of living extraordinary, and I love learning it and experiencing it whenever I film with different species, and with that includes people. If that answers whatever the question was, I can't remember.
It certainly does, yeah. And if you ever need volunteers or assistance, I'm one assistant. Please, it'll be an honor to see you at work and to learn with you. That sounds simply amazing. Listening to you was really, really cool. Thank you so much, Toby. It was a real great pleasure to talk to you.
It's an absolute pleasure. I was really nervous, but you make it very easy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. It was a real honor to get to speak with Toby, a truly inspiring person. If you like the podcast, please feel free to share with anyone who may enjoy it as well. Also, don't forget to subscribe and follow us. All the best and fair winds to all of you. and happy Christmas, everyone!